warm welcome to the program and welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos. We begin with breaking news this hour. The Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has tested positive for coronavirus. He has repeatedly played down the risks posed by the virus, calling it a little flu, and saying that he would not be seriously affected by it. He even urged regional governors to ease lockdowns, which he says hurt the economy. Yesterday, he watered down regulations on wearing face masks. As at Monday, the death toll in the country was over 65,000, and infections were over 1.6 million, second only to the United States. We'll have more on the global updates in just a minute. In the meantime, one of the drugs used in treating the coronavirus, Remdesivir, is said to be in short supply. I guess where you can find ample sample of it, it's in the black market in India. And we now know this all thanks to a BBC documentary that found this not just about Remdesivir, but also of another COVID-19 drug, tocilizumab. Many families in Delhi have been heading over there, desperate to do whatever it takes to save their loved ones, despite paying exorbitant prices for the drug. The BBC was able to connect to people working at the medicine market in Old Delhi who said they could arrange the drug, but for the right price. The official price for each vial is 5,400 rupees, and a patient typically needs 5 to 6 doses. Another seller was quoting 38,000 rupees per vial. The demand for Remdesivir is driven by the fact that it has managed to cut the duration of COVID-19 symptoms from 15 days down to 11 in clinical trial at hospitals around the world. Novavax Incorporated, one of the front runners in the race to develop a COVID-19 vaccine, is set to receive $1.6 billion from the U.S. government with the aim of delivering 100 million doses by January next year. That grant is awarded from Operation Warp Speed, the White House program aimed at accelerating access to vaccines and treatments to fight the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. It will also cover the cost of running a large phase 3 trial, the final stage of human testing, which could begin as early as October.
What we got today is a grant contract to fund us up to $1.6 billion. And it really takes care of two important aspects of vaccine development, which typically happen in a sequence. And instead of doing it in sequence, we're going to do it in parallel. And so that's to take a vaccine construct that we make in the discovery lab that we have, and to put it into animals as quickly as possible and get data from animals and put it into humans as quickly as possible, and then advance it through the various phases that you have to. Phase 1 to show that it's safe, shows that it's effective in stimulating antibodies, and then rush into phase 2, which we will do we hope next month, to show it in different populations that it works or can work. And then the ultimate goal is to get it into a phase 3 trial. These are very, very expensive trials. Probably half or more than half of that 1.6 billion is to fund the phase 3 trials that we need to do.
Many countries around the world are beginning to reconsider COVID-19 lockdown restrictions, which have been lifted because of the fall in the number of cases. But a surge is causing many countries to restore those restrictions. For example, in the United States, some states have been reimposing those restrictions. And because the United States already has over 130,000 deaths from COVID-19, with over 2.98 million people who have contracted the virus. Here's a global update.
Australia's second largest city, Melbourne, is back on lockdown as the border between New South Wales and Victoria has closed for the first time in more than a century. People caught crossing the border without permission through any of the 55 roads or several river and wilderness crossings will face penalties, including a fine of 11,000 Australian dollars and 6 months imprisonment. In the United States, law enforcement officials in Texas say they will not enforce the newly enacted ruling that requires masks to be worn in public. The order also specifically says no citizen can be arrested or jailed for refusing to wear a mask. After the Texas governor ordered masks to be worn in public in any county with at least 20 COVID-19 cases on July the 2nd, multiple county sheriffs vowed not to enforce the rule. And just after the Super Saturday reopening of bars and pubs in the UK, 3 have said they have shut their doors again after customers tested positive for COVID-19. Ministers have faced criticism that the country is unlocking far too quickly relative to its rate of infection, predicting a second spike of positive cases as restrictions ease. In Pakistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan handed over the first batch of a dozen locally manufactured ventilators to the country's National Disaster Management Authority in the northwestern city of Haripur. Virus infections surged after Khan lifted a countrywide lockdown in May. But lockdowns have been reimposed in certain areas since then in what the country calls a smart lockdown. There have been 231,818 coronavirus cases and 4,762 deaths in the country.
Well, back in the United States, as politicians and academics have been criticizing a decision to withdraw U.S. visas from foreign students whose courses move fully online. According to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE for short, people could face deportation unless they change to an institution with in-person tuition. A number of U.S. universities are considering online teaching in the new academic year due to coronavirus. It's not clear now how many people will be affected, but the Students and Exchange Visitor Program, which is operated by ICE, had introduced a temporary exemption to allow students whose courses had moved online for the spring and summer semesters to remain in the United States. However, the exemption will not be extended into the new academic year. That decision affects students who are in the U.S. on F1 and M1 visas, according to ICE. Our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird, joins us now. Maria, thanks for joining us on the program. Do we have any idea now the number of students that this decision could affect and from what countries?
As you mentioned, students that are on the F1 and M1 visas, this directly impacts. We're talking about thousands of students. I mean, some schools have close to 1,000 students that are on those type of visas. And so this is going to impact schools across the country. We know the schools specifically that it will impact. We know Harvard has already announced that they will be online for next academic year. So there's one young lady that has said that she will be okay going home, but she knows that many of her other fellow students will not be okay. They don't have places when they go back home internationally to be able to ensure that they will have good internet connections to take these classes online. And so this will have a traumatic impact not only on those students who are potentially being sent back, but it will have an impact on the economics of the schools. Many higher ed institutions are suffering drastically as a result of COVID-19, and having this tuition taken from their bottom line will impact them greatly in the upcoming year.
Yeah, and if this is just seemingly temporary, and that's what I want to ask, if it really is temporary, because it covers the spring and summer semesters, then what happens in the new year when schools do resume, hopefully with the coronavirus clearing, much more, in the U.S. opening its borders again and international airspace for travel and for tourism and so on. Is there any assurance that these students will be allowed back into the United States to complete their programs?
Yeah, so we're embarking on the fall semester, and many schools have contracted a delayed start, so potentially September rather than August starting for many universities across the United States. but this will impact potentially the new year, which would be the spring semester in January if they are sent home for the fall, because getting these programs back in place, again, this is a funding issue. Many of the students are here on special types of funding, and so that will have to be straightened out before we can even look at bringing those students back onto the campuses. And again, we all know that many campuses are going to be 30%, 40%, or 50% occupied. No one is bringing 100% of their students back to their campuses in the upcoming fall. So this will dramatically impact the colleges, but most importantly, those individuals who have made long-lasting friends on their campuses, those individuals who are coming up to the end of their academic programs. As you mentioned, they're on their way to receiving their degrees from U.S. institutions, but we all must look at the facts here. We know that the Trump administration has been working very hard to try to get the economy back reopened. And so we know that many of the higher ed institutions have taken more of the ideals of the CDC, Dr. Fauci, and many of those who are more reserved in how we should be making sure we're wearing masks, we're using social distancing. And so this will definitely be a political back and forth. And I think that at this time, it's going to really come down to the people of America being able to speak up for those individuals who could be sent back home.
What about the thought that this could have something to do with President Trump's immigration program? He's always said he wanted, the right people in the United States, and always wanted to get rid of illegal immigrants and people who really have no business in the United States. For most people who come into the U.S. to study, most really do require a year or a year plus to be able to practice some of the things that they have learned and to stay in the United States. So some people have also used school programs as a way to integrate into society and become part of the U.S. Population. So President Trump doing this, the Trump administration doing this, is this also a ploy to make sure that people do not use this as a path to citizenship?
Potentially, but you said in the beginning, you said he's always talked about having the right people here in the U.S. Who other is better? I mean, we know, let's just be clear on the statistics. International students fare much better most of the time academically than even some American students that are born and bred in the U.S. And so they are actually contributing a great deal to our society. And so they are the individuals. They are not the ones that are creating any type of challenges that exist in the U.S. So these would be the ones we would want to keep in the U.S. So that's why it really looks as if this is a real issue about politics. It's really a way to potentially push the agenda of being able to reopen the United States and looking to not having higher ed institutions to potentially be online solely in the upcoming year.
Maria, thanks again for joining us. And do stay safe.
Thank you.
Of course. Let's turn to China now. Implementation rules for Article 43 of the Law of the People's Republic of China on safeguarding national security in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region were gazetted on Monday. They take effect today in Hong Kong. The article stipulates various measures that the Department of Safeguarding National Security of the Police Force of HKSR may take when handling cases concerning offense endangering national security. It also authorizes the HKSAR chief executive, in conjunction with the Committee for Safeguarding National Security, to make relevant implementation rules for the purpose of applying the measures stipulated under Article 43. At the first meeting of the National Security Committee on Monday, the chief executive, in conjunction with the National Security Committee, exercised the power under Article 43 of the National Security Law to make relevant implementation rules for law enforcement agencies, such as the Department of Safeguarding National Security of the Hong Kong Police Force, to implement the measures stipulated under that article. Today we're talking about the new security law that China has imposed in Hong Kong. Beijing, however, says foreigners in China have nothing to fear if they obey the law. This comes after Australia warned its citizens they may be at risk of arbitrary detention in China in an updated travel advisory. During the regular news conference in Beijing, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Zhao Lijiang, also called for the relevant country to practice caution when speaking and do more, which will contribute to China-Australia relations. Domestic relations between Australia and top trading partner China became frayed after Canberra called for an international inquiry into the source and spread of the new coronavirus, which emerged in the Chinese city of Wuhan. Australia continues to advise its citizens not to travel to China under coronavirus control measures, and citizens cannot leave Australia without an exemption granted by the Home Affairs Department. This new law has brought a lot of changes to China's relations, even to social media. A media app, TikTok, is considering leaving Hong Kong now within days, as other technology companies, including Facebook Incorporated, have suspended processing government requests for use data in the region. A short-form video app owned by China-based ByteDance has made the decision to exit the region following China's establishment of a sweeping new national security law for the semi-autonomous city, which some have said is quite draconian. Also, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the United States is certainly looking at banning Chinese social media apps, including TikTok, suggesting it shared information with the Chinese government. And that's a charge that China has denied. U.S. lawmakers have raised national security concerns over TikTok's handling of user data, saying they were worried about the Chinese laws requiring domestic companies to support and cooperate with intelligence work controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Joining us now on the program to discuss the developments is legal practitioner Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze. He joins us now from Abuja. Mr. Eze, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
How do you interpret China's actions in Hong Kong and the way it has been responding to countries that have either criticized or have taken action against China concerning this new law?
It is expected because China, Bruce, it does not accept any criticism. China is draconian in its responses to criticism, and whether inside the country or outside the country, does not accept criticism. So nobody is surprised about China's response to countries commenting about its new security law in Hong Kong. I think the ghost of the Tiananmen Square massacre is hanging in the air. That of June 4, 1989 is hanging in the air. Also, China certainly will not brood any protest. It's going to assert its force. It will enforce, it will control. All the fears will come to pass. Everything fear about China will come to pass in Hong Kong. This reminds us of Tibet, Xinjiang province. China has not pretended in those places and will not pretend in Hong Kong. Certainly, these are dark days for Hong Kong.
So do you think that foreigners should be subject to these laws in China and those who are in Hong Kong? Although China has once said that China says if they obey it, then they should have no problems. But shouldn't this law only apply to Chinese citizens?
No, it applies to every person within the jurisdiction of Hong Kong. The foreigners are not excluded. The problem with the law is that of interpretation. Because, for instance, collusion is a crime. It's difficult to define collusion. It's difficult to define sedition. Their own definition of sedition is different from the one known to rule of law. So if you ever make any attempt of subjecting the interpretation of sedition, collusion, terrorism, all those things from the Western world, the way they are known, they are not the meanings that China has given them. It is the meanings that the Communist Party of China has given to those terminologies. So if you're a university lecturer and you are teaching your students and you start giving examples that they think you are mocking the Communist Party, that could amount to sedition. So every person will be affected in the coming days. So I think, why is it that Britain has liberalized its visa policy for Hong Kongers, such that those having 6 months could have 5 years now?
Yeah,
so
and
they've
why is it
seen
happening now?
Yes, so they've seen what is.
Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, thank you again for joining us on The World Today. So as we end the program, the wedding bells are ringing, the white gowns are on, makeup and hair are looking flawless, which they should be on anyone's wedding day, but these brides have no ceremonies to attend. COVID-19 pandemic has meant planned weddings all over the world have had to be cancelled or postponed, some due to lockdown and others due to social distancing and limited number rules that mean the couples can have the elaborate day with all their friends and family as planned. But a group of frustrated brides-to-be who had their special days put on hold got dressed up in wedding dresses and gathered outside the stunning Trevi Fountain in Rome today for a flash mob to protest against the coronavirus restrictions. Weddings were allowed to resume in Italy from May 18th, but no large gatherings are allowed. At the small weddings, masks are mandatory, even for the happy couple, and throwing confetti or the bride's bouquet are banned. But at the Trevi Fountain today, the brides threw matching freely white umbrellas into the air instead of the confetti and the bouquet.
I'm here to protest because since I should get married this year, but because of the pandemic, I found the church, but the restaurants or reception, I can find it. So I was forced to move it for the next year and hopefully for the next year, everything will be fine so I can finally get married.
Wouldn't you want to just be safe on your wedding day? And will she repeat that dress on the next wedding day? Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.